So we have two titular characters who never see each other, bad guys who are just having a laugh, LAF, awkward first dates, boat problems, and a brand spanking new, dopey looking Captain America. All this in the debut episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Welcome to the MCU Pod. I'm Grant Davis, and this is a companion podcast to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. My co-host is... That's your cue, Mike.
Mike Moody Garcia. Good to be here. Last time you introduced me, so I'm like, what are we doing today?
I know. I think I forgot to highlight that. I was going to let you just do it yourself.
It's all good.
We're excited to be joined once again by our good friend and comics aficionado, Randy Lander of thetvdudes.com.
Hey, what's up?
And we're joined once again by our buddy and our legal representative. Can I say that? Elliott Fontanette.
I mean, for the purposes of streaming, yes.
Yeah.
He's a legal eagle on a show about a falcon.
He's on retainer.
What? Did you black me? Am I gone?
I can kick you, Randy. Gone.
That's fair. That's fair. I won't do that again. I promise.
God power. So welcome everyone to the show. Tonight we are streaming the pod live over on YouTube and talking the premiere episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. What that does mean is that we are going to be going into spoilers, so we want to warn you ahead of time that you probably should watch the episode, unless that's your kink, in which case, no kink shame. You know, we're going to spoil it.
We're glad to be of service.
Yeah.
Can we use a different word?
Nope. It is of service. Mike, can you tell people a little bit more about the podcast?
Yeah, we want you to subscribe and follow the podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us at mcupod.com. There you can find links to Apple, Spotify, everywhere we are available. Rate and review us on Apple. And if you're watching on YouTube now, live or the replay, toss us toss us a comment and question in the live chat. Type capital POD pod so we can see your question and we can talk about it later. Also, you can help us out by going to patreon.com/MCU Pod. That helps us keep. There you go. That helps keeps us going. $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. You get your pick. Also, it looks like Grant and I are going to start maybe a new series, but we're definitely going to do one behind the paywall Patreon podcast all about the Snyder Cut.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
That just came out the day that Falcon and Winter Soldier came out. I'm gonna try not to give away what I think about the Snyder Cut on this podcast. Try really hard. But if you want to check that out, maybe we'll have a few guests on that episode. That'll be on our Patreon. So patreon.com/MCU Pod.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. New World Order is the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, written by Malcolm Spellman and directed by Kerry Skoglund. The synopsis for this episode, according to IMDb, is Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes realize that their futures are anything but normal, which sounds vague. That could be a fortune cookie. I don't even know what that is.
My thing is they just now realized that.
Yeah. We start this episode like we start every episode with some snap judgment. All right, Elliott, take it away.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't expecting to get it first. This is a lawyer that doesn't read his show notes beforehand. I really enjoyed the episode. I've actually watched it 3 times already. Just for different reasons. Like the first time I watched it just because I was really excited to watch it. Second time I more watched it for the MCU tie-ins, and then the third time, just as a black man, there are some lines that they say in the show. That's stuff that I have said and has said to me. Like there's a line where the guy goes, "Oh man, you look really good as the Falcon." He's like, "I'm trying to be like you." That's exactly some stuff you would say. So it just was really satisfying. Give it snap like an 8 out of 10 right off the bat.
Nice. Randy, what are you thinking?
I was super excited for this, even more so than WandaVision. And the Cap movies are probably my favorite movies in the Marvel Universe, aside from maybe the last two Avengers. And I stayed up till 2 a.m. to watch it, and I've watched it again since then. Not at all disappointed in that decision. I felt like this was Captain America 4 with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, picked up right where it left off, had movie quality action, delved into Sam's story in a way we've never seen in the movies or the comics, really, and like gave that character more of a character. And just had some fantastic stuff. Plus, as a Mark Gruenwald wrote a Cap run that was one of my first Captain America runs. His influence is all over the place here, and so it's just like watching all this stuff that I read as a teenager come to life. I loved it. I'm super excited for more.
Awesome. Mike, what are you thinking?
Yeah, dude, this was a really strong start. It was a lot more conventional than what we saw in WandaVision, but I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it for that. Like, more conventional can be good when you have like a strong ass cast like they do here. And also when you deepen the story with like personal stakes that resonate and themes that like elegantly reflect the broad social issues of our time, which is what we're starting to see here in this first episode. This show already like clearly has confidence in its step, confidence in its vision. The action was a blast. That Point Break meets fucking Tom Clancy aerial battle shit they pulled at the top.
Point Break.
It was so good. It got my blood pumping. It was really good. It reestablished like the heroism of our man, the Falcon. We hadn't really seen him like shine in a while, so that was great to start off. And just to cap this off, this is the most I've been invested in like Sam and in Bucky since like the Winter Soldier, and that was like 8 movies ago. So I'm here for it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm in the tank for anything Marvel. What I think is remarkable about this premiere, this, on the heels of WandaVision, is that when Marvel has the opportunity to take their time with a story, they start taking their time. And we went through 3 episodes of them just kind of playing around with a template in WandaVision, and here the 2 main characters never really interact. There's vague elements of what this bad guy might be in the background, but we're not really sure. They're just kind of hinting at stuff, and we're just kind of getting grounded with where the characters are in their life post the blip. So in that regard, I thought it was a little slow. I was kind of surprised by that, but at the same time, I'm happy to kind of bathe in all the character development that's going on here. I love the new sides we're seeing of these characters. Delving into how Bucky's just dealing with the trauma, and how Sam has such weight on his shoulders that he just is kind of shirking because he's scared of it. I thought both of those were handled really well, and this was a longer episode than WandaVision ever gave us, and it was still too short. And so I was annoyed by that. I was like, no, it is still 6 minutes of credits. You fooled me. We have a couple comments here from people giving in their snap judgments. Will Morris says, Uncle Sam out there saving the world. Can't even get alone.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Nicole Jackson says, yeah, that loan thing, the racism in that, I got mad. Oh, yeah.
Well, the part where he's like, because my wife and I, we were talking about it, and the part where they're like, you have no income for the last 5 years, but it's even worse than that because he went on the run with Cap for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And they weren't getting paid. So he has no like gainful employment for the last 5 years, but you would have thought that Stark and his lawyers would have set up some kind of trust fund.
No,
like you should be getting paid.
But remember, he was on the outs with Stark. That's the thing.
Even then.
No.
Oh yeah, Stark probably cut all of them off.
He cut them all off.
No, but you can't open that and take the cell phone and cut them off. Like at the end of Civil War, he opens like, they'll be back. It's like, then put that shit in a trust. You are made of money. I actually saw a tweet today that it was talking about Jeff Bezos, and it's like Jeff Bezos is worth $200 billion, and it hasn't become Batman or Iron Man. What is he doing?
Yeah. That's an excellent point. I think that the first scene of this opens with Sam Wilson ironing. Like we already have enough of the weight of Cap on him, but at the same time, there's a little bit of Iron Man's legacy. He's actually in a lot of ways, especially in that opening like action sequence, much more akin to Iron Man, and it seems like he's made for an Iron Man suit.
Mhm.
You
I
see
don't know,
that?
like blasting, flying all around, and like being able to just like have that kind of control and fighting people. Like I was like, man, you could be heir to that throne.
The opening with the Iron Man thing was great because, or with him ironing,
Yeah,
because that was just a signal telling us this guy's human. This guy has to iron his shirt still. You know, he's not like, unlike I said I wasn't going to talk about the Snyder Cut, but unlike Zack Snyder, the way Zack Snyder depicts like the Justice League heroes as these like gods among men that don't really have any humanity left in them. Our heroes here, and which is what is core to what makes Marvel great in the MCU and in the comics, is that these are people. These are real people. They have to iron their shirts. They have issues, and we're seeing the humanity right up front with these two characters. And I saw in the notes here that you're going to talk about like how Sam is like Iron Man, and I was like, wait a minute, like. People are just going to be like, oh, Sam is just like Iron Man. He flies around in a suit, and I was all ready to do this, like to battle you on that. Just like how he's different than Iron Man. But
no, not personality or anything.
But like the way he, he fights in the air and he flies and stuff.
Yeah,
I just feel like he could also be a like suitable candidate to don the armor and be able to, have the nano suit where he doesn't have to keep putting up a shield to get shot.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't see it. I think Sam's fighting style is different. I think it's the difference between like a martial artist and a brawler. It's like he's a guy who he fights like Cap, especially in this first episode.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they upped his game a little bit. Like he is fighting like Cap does, and he's, we saw him do a little bit of this in the open Civil War. We've seen him throw people around, use the wings, but he definitely has like upped his game a little bit here, and he throws
straight
down
up an Iron Man shot, by the way.
I don't see it. Just because you fly doesn't make you Iron Man. Vision doesn't Iron Man.
Well, I mean, I sort of see from both perspectives because he does fight like Cap, but Cap was not so much on the tech, and it's a big character moment that they show him fixing Red Wing himself. It gives a lot of credit to the character and says like, no, he understands the tech behind his suit. He doesn't need handlers. He's doing them a favor.
Yeah.
And so like that, I really love seeing that because too often, unless they're Iron Man, they don't really give him that credit of being really smart. Mm-hmm. But he obviously knows electrical engineering. Like, dude, you're in Louisiana. Go work for Exxon. Like, you know a few things. Go work at a plant. Like, be a maintenance engineer. Make some money.
That Psycho Revere says he's got the snark of Iron Man, the goody boyness of Cap.
I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I've seen, and I just blanked on his name. The guy who plays Falcon. I can't believe I blanked on his name.
Anthony Mackie.
Anthony Mackie, if you see him in other roles and you see the behind the scenes stuff where he's like the cut the check guy, he's got this swagger. And he's got this like, he's definitely more of a snarky guy. But when he's playing Sam, that snark and that confidence comes through. But at the same time, he's also playing a Captain America type because he's got this like sensitivity and caring about others that you saw and I think it really works. Like I think if you had a different actor, you might get someone who's a little more subdued, but you get that Sam is like super confident but not a jerk about it. And I think that's really
grounded and empathetic.
Yeah.
And I can build upon that. He definitely, I don't want to say he takes a back seat, but he has so much reverence for Cap that it's clearly a situation where he looks up to Cap. So when he relates to Cap, it's much more of a, hey, what do you need? I'm with you. Yeah. Everybody else, he can let sort of his arrogance sort of fly and be like, no, I'm going to talk to you like I would really talk to you. But Cap, it's like, no, you're Captain America. Whatever you need, Captain America. Like not as bad as Ant-Man, who's just like, well,
right.
It's Captain America, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, and that's the arc of him in the show too. Is that he is, when it comes to like taking the shield and becoming Cap, like Cap handed him the shield and told him you're ready. And he's not feeling ready because it's Cap. But when he goes into that bank, man, he is he is the guy in charge. Now it doesn't work out for him, but he is confident in areas where he shouldn't be confident, like oh no, this finance will be no problem. I'm the Falcon. It's all cool. And not as confident where he should be, whereas like, hey man, Cap said you were ready for this. And I think getting past his sort of worship of Cap and realization that Cap was just a man, whatever else, is going to be part of his arc in this show.
Yeah, it's gonna be satisfying to see. Like, one of the things I really love about Marvel is that they earn everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to bring up the Snyder Cut too much, but it goes back to the comics, because DC has always billed themselves as these are the gods. These are your new gods.
Mm-hmm.
They have a comic book run called The New Gods.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Marvel has been much more ground level. So even though some people may not like the Snyder Cut, I sort of did like it, and surprisingly, it's somewhat true to the comics, because that's what they sort of wanted. And so this really does show you, like, no, he has his own problems he has to work through.
I hope this podcast isn't going to be like, here's what Marvel does well,
Sorry.
and here's what the Snyder Cut does incorrectly.
I won't bring it up again.
No, I do understand. I set that precedent, but I kind of want to. I kind of want to go back to the idea that Sam fixes his own suit, and I like that. All those points you made, Elliott, are true. He has the technical ability, he has the smarts, he's multi-talented, right? And this is a guy who is poised to be our hero. But I like that he fixes his suit, and then the Air Force guys like, hey, the tech guys back at the government would love to get their hands on that. He's like, no. Every time those guys touch it, they fuck it up. And that's just like continuing the legacy of the Captain America movies that don't fucking trust the government with anything. I like that.
So let's talk about the fight sequence at the very beginning, because one thing that was on my mind was the fact that now we have Falcon back working for the military. This is like if we remember the timeline, he's kind of on the outs with the government and he's in hiding up until Infinity War. And then he disappears for 5 years, blips back into existence, is part of the people fighting Thanos, and then I guess he's okay with them and he's like back doing missions for them. It seemed like, I don't know, that seemed a little bit weird.
I think we got an answer to that here through Bucky, right? Because with Bucky, it looks like all the heroes got pardoned after defeating Thanos. Like, part of the terms of Bucky's pardon is those therapy check-ins, right? And maybe the part of the terms of Sam's pardon dictate that he has to be on call as like a special operative for the Air Force, which is the unit he's working with right now, right?
Right.
But also, one of the things about it is that Sam he's a rescue guy. That Fabian Nicieza, the guy who writes, he's written a bunch of comics. He posted online something about that I thought was really smart. He said that in one line, the MCU defined Sam in a way better than he has ever been defined in the comics. When his sister says, "Sam to the rescue," that's what he does. He's the rescuer. That's what he was. He was before Winter Soldier. He was the rescue pilot. And then he comes in to rescue his sister. He kind of showed up to rescue Cap in Endgame. So the notion of like them coming to him and being like, look, we got a midair rescue mission. You're really the only guy who can do it. There's no way he'd turn him down, even if it's not part of his part.
Yeah, he can't. It's not in him.
He has to have already been on location doing something else, presumably, to be that close and be able to do that rescue.
Right. But I think
they probably think he's like their man kind of doing ops here.
There was a line where he said, I've been working for the Air Force for a while now. Yeah.
But I figured they came to him because that's what he did before he, when he went to the VA. He was a guy who piloted rescue ops, and I'm sure he was like, the Avengers are kind of disbanded. I want to help out, and the Air Force probably offered a way to do it. Makes sense. Plus, Rhodey's his buddy. Rhodey's an Air Force colonel.
The government has money for the military, so why can't he get a fucking loan?
Well, that's the part to me that rang. I know where the writer was going for, and I definitely appreciate it from a social justice perspective. But if you're gonna stay in universe, I don't really buy that scene, because there would be some money somewhere. Like, you don't save the world, literally save the world, and not get a loan. Like,
I gotta say, I it's a stretch, but I can buy it because you see how we treat our military at the VA and that kind of thing. Like, I can absolutely see two things. One, that there isn't like, he's not like getting paid a ton, that kind of thing. But the other is I think probably he is too proud to like go to his military guys and be like, hey, can I get you to co-sign this thing for me? He was like, I don't need that. I'm the Falcon. I'll get this taken care of.
No, yeah, I am viewing it as a lawyer, and I have no problem going. No. Pay me. You need to pay me.
So we have a new threat called LAF. I was hoping, Randy, you might have some sort of insight into what that acronym could mean.
They're new, and I have no idea. The only thing I can think of, we talk about Flag Smasher. There was an organization called Ultimatum, which we talk. It's the best acronym ever. That's an acronym, and I love it. But LAF, I was like, something front, liberate Algiers front or something. I have no idea. I don't know that they're gonna give us any more on that. It might have been just, they were the bad guys.
Is
Those
this
are all,
Ultimatum?
that is Ultimatum, and I'm just gonna tell you right now, Ultimatum is the underground liberated, totally integrated mobile army to unite mankind.
Oh,
Okay, well, I need to stop. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm gonna just give you some applause right there because that was amazing.
Wait. Do we have two? The LAF and the Flag Smashers are different?
Yes, they are different. They're different people.
At least for the time being, it seems like they're two different groups.
Right. Okay.
But they might be. It might be like the Flag Smashers are like some sort of group working under LAF.
Yeah.
And LAF, I'm assuming, is going to be tied in with Zemo. Because we know that he's going to be returning as a bad guy.
Maybe, but I don't know. I feel like it might have almost been just like in Winter Soldier. The opening is just kind of the opening to give us that action, and like a Bond movie. I feel like the LAF may not be a thing that comes back, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So we get the return of another bad guy that we saw first in
Winter Soldier.
Was it Winter Soldier? Anyway, it's Batroc.
I don't remember this guy. Who is Batcock, and
Oh,
why is he
Batcock is a
interesting?
completely different thing.
Yeah, that was the thing that got the Black Label thing shut down at DC. Is the Batcock.
Yeah, like that's the after-hour Snyder cut.
I don't want to see that. Okay.
So here we got Batroc. Randy, can you give us an explainer on this guy?
So Batroc in the movies is a French special ops mercenary, and this is more of his modern incarnation. There he is. There's his comics incarnation reacting to it, and he's just a guy who basically uses savate, which is kickboxing, and he's supposed to be able to throw down with Cap. In the movies, he was basically just this mercenary, and I'm glad to see him back, and it's great. In the comics, though, he has this outrageous French accent, like a comical French accent, and he is always fighting Cap with like this weird sense of mercenary honor, and he usually gets his butt kicked, but every now and then he can like hold his own with Cap. I have a huge fondness for this character. He's like borderline joke character, but just like every Marvel character when they were first introduced, they were like the most dangerous villain they'd ever faced. So he has been dangerous in the past, but I also think he's kind of a joke villain. And I love Batroc. I love his goofy costume. I love his French accent. So I'm happy that they didn't kill him off again.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun character to see return, but for a second there, I thought, is this a flashback sequence to like when Falcon used to operate within the military? Because we were seeing Batroc and we were seeing him just kind of running this op. And for a second, I was thinking that the Torres character, who his man on the ground, was going to be that partner that ends up dying, because I couldn't remember the name of his partner, that which he's talking about in Winter Soldier. Like the reason he got kind of PTSD and he left the military. But Torres, I guess there's more to this character, but I gotta say that the actor was like immediately delightful. I liked the guy a lot.
Fantastic character, yeah.
Yeah, the actor, I was just like, oh, okay, this guy does seem like a good buddy. And he's earnest and has respect. But then his silly stuff about like Cap on the moon and all that was just funny stuff.
Yeah, he's like a cool Redditor, right? Like
Yeah.
he knows all the conspiracy theories, he tracks all the activity, like he understands like all the QAnon shit and he follows it, but he doesn't believe it, you know? So he's cool. I instantly did not want him to die. I instantly wanted to like take care of him.
So I was scared for him later too. I was really scared.
Well, it feels like just seeing this character and see how instantly likable he is. In the comics, he becomes the new Falcon,
right?
After Captain America, after Sam becomes Cap.
Yep.
And I feel like the casting directors sort of were like, look, if this takes off, we're gonna need another Falcon, and so we need to have him have a watchable quality, so we have to recast him.
Yeah, and if this dude's he's an Air Force guy, you know, you could theoretically put him in the suit. I love the idea.
Now, I'm taking a look at this picture, Randy, that you provided of the new Falcon, which is Daniel Torres, right?
Joaquin Torres.
Is his name Joaquin Torres? Okay.
In the comics, it is. I don't know if it is in the movie, in the show.
They didn't say the first name, I don't think.
Anyway, it looks like he actually is part bird.
He's
his arms are.
He gets mutated by, I believe, the Power Broker, and becomes a Birdman.
Well, in the credits of the show, they have the words Power Broker.
Yes, they do.
I tell you, like, one of the things, if you want to know the new characters that are coming to Marvel, about 5 years ago, and Randy, you can really speak to this, there was this spate, and I'm not complaining, but there was a spate of more diverse characters that I got introduced to Marvel. And at the time, the people like the alt-right was really worried about it, and some of the people were like, "You shouldn't be worried." I'm like, "Oh no, if you don't like that, you should be worried because they're farming. They're going to bring these up to the MCU. That's the reason they're bringing them to the comics."
Yeah.
So I have that little Easter egg that you're talking about, Elliot, the Power Broker. In the end credits, there's actually quite a few little Easter egg things they were putting in there. Power Broker is watching, and Randy, you also provided this image of Power Broker.
I did not give you the image of him when he like uses his own thing and becomes a big giant muscle man, because it was just weird.
Okay.
But it's just a guy in his suit.
So Power Broker is, if you go back to that Power Broker credits image, it's interesting. Power Broker is a guy in the comics who was a Cap nemesis. He was sort of behind the scenes. He was outfitting all these people with like Cap type powers. He was behind the Unlimited Class Wrestling Foundation. They had a bunch of guys that were like superhero wrestlers. He gave powers to John Walker, who then became Captain America, and and he basically was like doing all this powering up of people. And I noticed that they've got those little blue vials, which makes me think that maybe that he is powering people up, including maybe the Flag Smasher, who has like Cap level kicking people across the street.
Right.
So I feel like we're gonna get some behind the scenes of like, oh, the Power Broker is like got a knockoff super soldier serum that he's using or something.
That's I mean, they're throwing a lot in here, and Power Broker seems immediately super hokey, corny. Like this is what's his name, Gecko from Wall Street, kind of. Like, who is this? Okay, yeah. So you don't know what necessarily LAF is. We do also have the Flag Smashers mentioned as. It seems like, and I'm kind of jumping ahead of this, but I'm trying to keep all of this thread the same. But we have Torres saying, oh, there's this other group. I'm seeing a lot of their tags and a lot of their chatter going on, and they're called the Flag Smashers. And we get a little line where Sam's talking about that sounding super corny. But it seems like Torres attends a flash mob of sorts where people were invited to come out here and put on masks so that they could all distract from a Flag Smasher bank robbery.
Wasn't that great? Like, just like that super cool, unexpected plan to create like 100 decoys.
Right.
And like all that iconography of the mask, you know, running everywhere, all that chaos. And I thought it was a really interesting take on how terrorists or criminal organizations recruit with like their online tactics, and that with like augmented reality apps, because that's probably happening, right?
Yeah, I think we saw that a bit in like Westworld too, where they're exploring like how criminal networks would do that, like in the 3rd season.
Right.
And I thought that was really fascinating. You see some of that here.
Well, it's a very Tom Clancy kind of thing to use like real world stuff, and the Cap stuff has always seemed influenced by the Tom Clancy military adventurism kind of stuff.
Well, and just as watching it as a lawyer, I was just like horrified because I'm like, oh, y'all are all a part of it now. I don't care if like you just put on a mask, you are liable for all this shit now.
It's a
congratulations,
mob, Elliot.
I'm just saying, like, I was like, oh, y'all haven't heard of the felony murder rule, have you?
I'm just here to dance, man. I don't know.
Yeah, you'll have to talk to our lawyer. You're our lawyer.
So, Elliot, you would say make sure and vet your flash mobs when you go to your particular. Make sure.
I'm just saying, if I was them, I would have a different mask on.
So I
have an argument.
I guess while we're on this topic of the villain, so far as we've been presented in this first episode, what are y'all's thoughts? Like, what should we be expecting from them this season?
So I'm not sure because Flag Smashers, I did like them tying into the blip. That basically they liked the way the world was with the blip. In the comics, they are basically Flag Smasher is one guy. He's the Ultimatum Army.
It
He is
sounded
one,
like Antifa when I was like reading about it before.
It kind of is. I mean, basically, he doesn't like nationalism of any sort, and he believes the world will be better off without countries. Which honestly, I know people like that. And I can see that point of view, but they take it to a terrorist extreme, and he was a perfect foil for Captain America, who is all about nationalism and the United States.
Right. And, this idea of the blip and how people just couldn't rely on borders, people just all had to come together and help each other out, is a fascinating way to kind of examine how that had a macro effect. All right. And once again, I think it would just be so fascinating to be sitting in the writer's room and just hear how they say, okay, here's what happened. The blip took away all these people. What is the world after that? And just like explore different avenues and like really, I'm sure they had to map it out. Like this is what we would have to chart as a history, because we're going to have to refer back to this and we're going to have to be consistent in our narrative going forward of how that shaped things.
Well, and I heard that there's a group of about, I think it's 12 to 15 writers that consult on all the shows and movies. They're called the Parliament, which is just really cool. Like, it's like, where do you work? I'm part of the Parliament for Marvel. Yes.
Fuck yeah. Add that to my resume.
They should call them the Illuminati.
No.
The Illuminati were evil.
All right, that's fair.
I mean, depends on the viewpoint, but like I sort of view the series as, I don't really think the villains are going to be the main focus. I think they're going to do what Marvel tries to do a lot, is have the villains reflect an internal struggle of the characters. And so they're going to just, it'll be more about, Bucky coming to terms with what he did and forgiving himself more than anything else. And then probably Sam, there's probably going to be some oblique racial references in terms of a black man being Captain America, and and then just his feelings of inadequacy. But they're going to juxtapose that with these people who are claiming power without any of the qualifications, and sort of show Sam, hey, you fought Thanos, you were in Civil War, you were in Wakanda when Thanos showed up, you deserve all of this. And they're going to contrast that with this guy with a U.S. agent who has none of that, who's like, I'm gonna fucking wink at the camera when I show up.
Yeah, show that picture of that Popeye looking motherfucker, Grant. Is he
here, one sec, let me go.
the faux Captain America, played by Kurt Russell's son? Is that right?
Yep, Wyatt Russell.
Wyatt Russell?
Yep, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, look at this motherfucker. Come on now. So punchable. I hope when Sam meets this guy, like, I know nothing about this guy other than he's just usurping what is Sam's right. And I hope when Sam meets this guy, he tells him, motherfucker, you were born on third base and you act like you hit a home run. Get the fuck out of here.
It's ears hanging out. It's so good.
Yeah.
I want him to go full Harry Potter and be like, how dare you stand where he stood?
Yes. I also think, like, going back to the blip, it's interesting to see the differences between like the MCU proper and like the Sony MCU stuff, because in Spider-Man, the second Spider-Man movie post blip, it was like, oh, we're just back in high school, and well, look at that guy, he's 5 years older and he's a teenager now. And in Marvel proper, it's like communities are ruined, nobody can get a loan. There's terrorists rising because of it.
I just got to point out, Will Morris said, kind of looks like the old guy from Up. And sure enough, Randy, you gave me a picture.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. Someone told me that. She's like, yeah, the first thing I thought when I saw it was Carl from Up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I saw it and I'm like, oh yeah, I get it now.
Well, and just to echo you, Mike, one of the things is, like, I really like that it's Sony is like taking it very, gingerly, but it doesn't go full Netflix Marvel. Like, it's not like joy is gone from the world.
Right.
It's like, this shit happened. It's like the pandemic that we're going through. It's really tough, but you can still laugh from time to time most of the time.
So Mike and I were discussing in our preview episode last week a little bit of the idea of Helmut Zemo, Baron Zemo, returning as the villain. And, from what we could recall of where things were left off with that character, at the end of Civil War, it felt almost like he achieved what he wanted, and then he was about to commit suicide, and he was saved from that, and by Black Panther, who basically was like, not today, and kind of I wouldn't say like forgave him, but he like did a really magnanimous gesture in that, in saving him. So where do we think the trajectory is of that character after having achieved that, and then presumably going to jail? Maybe he disappeared in the blip and reappeared outside of jail, and
that's what I'm thinking, something like that, or the guards disappeared or something else. When the blip happened, he could have found a way to escape. But also, I was thinking about this earlier of like what is Zemo's MCU goal, and if he watched the Avengers come back together against Thanos, like he did all this work to break them apart, and they came back together bigger and stronger than ever, he might be like, "Oh, my job's not done. I gotta finish the job."
Do you think that's ultimately his goal there?
Yeah, the Avengers were the ones who basically got his family killed, and I think he's like, the Avengers can't stand.
Or I wonder if the blip also caused further damage to his reality.
I think both of y'all are right. I think it's like the blip of having, because if you think about his arc, his family was killed during the Sokovia incident in Age of Ultron, and so for him, he might be like, look, I just want normal threats again. I think he's more anti-superhero, and the Avengers are just
Luther kind of thing.
Yeah, are just part of it. But in terms of how he comes back, my bet is that he just gets it's like a deal from, like, I think he's in Wakanda prison, and I think they get like diplomatically released to help Falcon and Bucky on a mission. That's my guess.
Oh,
That'd be
interesting.
cool. Yeah, I hope it's something like that, or like something even more kind of powerful, like maybe after the blip, one of his prison guards or somebody guarding him lost people in the blip and blames the heroes and became a Zemo sympathizer and let him out.
I just wonder if it's
fascinating too.
More blip fallout.
I wonder if it's possible that he'll be someone tied to the power broker, if they're going to give him some abilities so that he can be more of a physical threat to them as well. Because in the comics, Zemo can throw down. He's got a sword, and he's someone who can actually match with Cap physically.
Well, and I tell you, I heard something. You read random stuff on Twitter all the time, so I don't know how reliable this is, but he's going to have the purple mask in this iteration. And what I heard is he's wearing it because it's like Thanos, and that's how they're going to explain the costume to like remind them of their greatest failure. Nice. Even though they reversed it, y'all still fucking lost.
Huh.
Wow. That'd be kind of funny. That's a good tie-in.
Yeah.
So, okay, now that we've covered all that, let's go ahead and talk about Sam giving away the shield and Sam talking with Rhodey. We got a cameo from Rhodey.
Yeah, that was great.
Which was cool. But I thought this whole sequence of him feeling the burden and giving the speech and just feeling like we need new heroes in this society, but he doesn't see that as him. It's a new era for other people, and he just feels like he can't necessarily connect. I thought it was really powerful. It was well done. I did also think that that's a vibranium shield, and someone's gonna steal that right away.
Yeah, I hope
gonna rise from the grave.
I hope that they put a replica in its place, because you can't put that shield on display in the Smithsonian. What kind of security they have?
No, there's real bad guys now. They're gonna find that. Claw's gonna come back too.
But we know that they had no intention of keeping it on display. They're like, "Oh, thanks for giving. This is the right thing to do, Sam." Yoink. Like they never intended to display it.
Well, yeah, and that's something that Bucky as a good friend. I mean, not Bucky. Rhodey as a good friend. They both end in E, so like I get him confused. He's trying to clue him into that. It's like, because he knows that political world that Sam doesn't. Like, he was a soldier, but he wasn't as connected as Rhodey is. And he's like, look, I think he's trying to tell him, like, there's going to be another Captain America.
Yeah.
We might as well have it be somebody that's been around everything and isn't going to try to usurp the image. And one of the things I love about this scene is two things. And just one of them I keep on bringing it up, but one of them as a black man, I love seeing a show that's not like a black show where they have 2 black men on screen and it's not even talked about. It's just these are the characters.
Yeah.
And the other one is watching their arc together. You know, Sam is one of the contributing factors to Rhodey being partially paralyzed. Because Iron Man thought that Sam couldn't avoid Vision's beam, and Sam totally just avoided it, and Rhodey was flying dead stick, and he crashed.
Yeah.
But the fact that they've come together, and Rhodey was the only one there for Sam, like that means a lot, and that's great.
I think they bonded a little bit. I mean, partly by being some of the only black heroes in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
But also, I think the military thing bonded them. There's a bit at the end of Endgame, or not Endgame, but Infinity War, where Rhodey's running around and he's yelling, looking for Sam.
Yep.
And it's like a little moment, but it's like, oh, these two are buddies. Like we haven't seen that to this extent yet.
And
and that's what I love about.
They have a great thing in common where they both lost their best friend, right?
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
They both, Rhodey, and they both have like an arc in common too. They were kind of, I don't want to say second fiddle or sidekick, whatever is less demeaning term. Yeah.
Partner.
The wingman. They were both the wingman to like the greatest heroes we've ever seen, and now those heroes are gone. So I think the inclusion of Rhodey at the beginning here speaks a lot to just informing the audience of where Sam is here. Like, and I love seeing them together as like brothers in arms. Like he believes in Sam. That was a great choice. I would love to see more of these two together just for the cool chemistry alone. Like they really like vibe off each other really well. And also for the camaraderie and the understanding that you instantly feel from them together in this scene. Like they've walked a similar path, but you're right, Elliott. Rhodey is a little more cynical about what the government might do with this shield. So he's trying to clue him into this. You see it at the beginning when he's giving the shield away. He's just like, man, don't do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Rhodey's an Air Force colonel. He used to work with defense contractors. He was not just a pilot. Like he's a guy who knows, as Elliott said, the political ins and outs. Can we talk for a second about how different and how much better Falcon is in the comic or in the movies than the comics? But go ahead, Grant. I see you have a thing popped up.
Well, I thought this was an interesting question here from Nicole, who says at some point they have to give Sam the serum, right?
Like, I don't think they will. I think they're gonna give him the option, and as part of his character arc completing, he's gonna say, "I'm enough."
Yeah,
and he's gonna consciously reject it.
Yeah, but Power Broker must have something, so it's possible. I think you're right. It'll get offered. In the comics, though, Sam was he was introduced as Sam Flip Wilson, a pimp, and then Red Skull turned him into like a villain, and then it was revealed he was mind controlled with the Cosmic Cube or something, and then he became like a social worker, and he's kind of been all over the place. Like the character in the comics they've spent a lot of time trying to define him. And in the MCU, taking that and being like, well, how does this work? And making him a rescue pilot and a guy who works at the VA. And then instead of being a guy from the Bronx, they make him a guy from Louisiana who has a family history of like fishing and all that stuff. And then giving him that military tie. Like they've really turned Sam into a so much more interesting character that I almost feel like the comics are going to have to just kind of pull into that direction.
It feels like this show is also taking cues from Mackie because we're getting more of, obviously the spotlight's on him. So we're getting the characters being more informed by who he is. Like we see some of that coolness, that swagger. And also Anthony Mackie, I think, is from New Orleans. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Elliott, how do you feel about him being from Louisiana?
I love it. Like, one of the things people forget about about Black culture is like people think Atlanta, maybe DC, but New Orleans, especially before Katrina, that's where I was born, is one of the Black cities in America. And like my dad is from St. Martinville, Louisiana, a little town around Lafayette. And so he's like, right, like, by the way, we probably know his people. I'll put it that way. And just the feeling you got when you watch, is like, when he was ironing his clothes, I was like, oh yeah, you're definitely Louisiana. Like I can look at that wall and tell it's like damp. Because like if you live in Louisiana, in certain parts, you have to have moisture sensors in your room if you own a house, because you have to make sure that it's not too moist, so there's not mold growing.
Oh, wow.
So like just little touches, like, and if anybody's a fan of Anthony Mackie, he was on Hot Ones recently, wonderful YouTube channel. Y'all should watch that. It's really good.
Yeah. There's a person we haven't discussed in this, and it's the other guy in the title of the show, Winter Soldier, aka Bucky Barnes here.
Look, he gets second billing for a reason. This was Falcon's show.
Yeah, and this is definitely a tie-in to Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and now it's Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and they're playing off the names. They're very clever, clever Marvel. But this guy, here, let's zoom in on him a little bit. He's also, going through some times. He's a little lost here. He's lying to himself about his trauma that he's going through, and he seems very, distant and alienated, which makes sense. Like, again, Mike and I were talking about this last week. Like, this guy, he was going through the same thing as Captain America, but now he's been like brought to the future and has no one. Even the one person he did have, Cap, is gone, and he has like no other sort of like connection to people outside of like he hung out in Wakanda for a little bit, so maybe that's the most home he now has.
Also, the last time this guy was in therapy, the therapist turned him into a living weapon again, so you can see where he might be a little skeptical.
Ooh, that's a good
like his last therapist was Zemo, so you can see where he'd be like, yeah, I'm not telling you shit.
Right. So instead he's just taking sexy naps on the floor, which this is a reminder of that discussion in Winter Soldier, where Cap is talking to Falcon, talking to Sam, and Sam's like, oh, you know what? What's weird about being back from war? It's the bed, right? It's too soft.
Yeah.
That's why I sleep on the floor. A lot of us sleep on the floor because that's like where we were. And this is just kind of a reflection of the mentality for Bucky. He's still in wartime. So when he tells his therapist, like, what all I want is peace and calm, it's like, no, he needs another battle. Like, that's probably what he's itching for, but he doesn't want to admit that to himself because he's also traumatized by how much he's hurt people.
Yeah.
I also love like he's a really good looking just old man. Like, he just hangs out with old people, and then like he thinks like going out on a date means playing pinochle.
Yeah, and because he's good looking, she's like, yeah, fine, pinochle, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like when people were like really big on Twilight, I don't want to attack anybody who liked Twilight, but the thing I didn't like was like this guy's 100 and something. Why is he what do you have to talk to high schoolers about? Like, I don't care what you look like. If you're in your hundreds, you're gonna probably hang around a bunch of old people because they have all your references.
Yeah.
Marvel keeping it real again.
But instead, Edward is super creepy. So he befriends this guy, and while I was I was making notes while I was watching this, and I was like, why the hell is he talking to this guy? And if he's such friends with this guy, why would it suddenly be this situation where this guy's talking about his dead son to him, like out of the blue? And I was like, oh shit, okay, that's what the dream was.
Yeah.
The immediate connection there.
When we first saw him, I thought maybe he was going to be one of the Howling Commandos.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I thought maybe it was like, oh, he hooked up with one of the Howling Commandos who's still alive. He has found a friend. And then when they started talking about the son, I'm like, oh no, it's that. It's worse. It's way worse.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, he can't even tell him because he might think to tell him is selfish. Like, he might think this is his penance for killing his son.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like it would be therapeutic for both of them. And even if it means that it's a loss of that kind of relationship between them.
I mean, he's going to lose a great wingman. Like, that's valuable.
But also, again, the last time Bucky's past got revealed to somebody, that guy tried to kill him wearing an armored suit. So he might be a little gun shy.
He's got good reason to not say anything.
Exactly.
But this guy does score him a sweet date, and she's very delightful and lovely.
Yeah.
Even if he can't really be honest about a lot of things, or at least he doesn't really want to talk about it.
He is honest. She asks how old he is, and he says he's 106.
Yep. Then he just chugs some more tiger beer.
He just lied about why he was wearing gloves. I do love that the therapist has him. First of all, I thought the therapist was great. I love her calling him on his bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I love the playful banter the two of them have, and I also liked that she's given him a list of how he can make amends. it's very. I mean, Cap had a list when he came back, so giving him a list, that's a nice little nod.
Right.
But also, I like seeing that he's out there righting his wrongs, and I thought that was a nice little flashback action sequence. I thought they did a really good job with that.
There's some good Easter eggs in his book of people to make amends with or confront. I will point out though that right here, if you can see me circling on there, is H. Zemo.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Helmut Zemo is on his list of people to confront and talk to.
Yep.
So there's just more of that kind of tie-in thread.
Yep.
So he has 3 steps he's supposed to take with all of his making amends scenes, and it's kind of great how they outline those juxtaposed with him breaking all of them. Basically, don't do anything illegal, nobody gets hurt, and then make your amends.
Hey, there's a good comment in here I want to pull up real quick. Sure. Zeph said, speaking as someone doing their social work masters, Bucky's writing is fantastic for someone acting with severe trauma and guilt.
It's good to know.
His handwriting?
The way they're writing the character, Grant.
If we didn't know Grant was a dad.
I just want to pull it back up because his handwriting is really nice.
Well, that's when they taught handwriting in class when he went to school.
Yeah. It used to be a subject.
I will say, when they first brought in Sebastian Stan and he was Bucky, I was like, he's fine. I'm not sure if I'm invested in him, but as they've given him more to do as Winter Soldier, and we've seen what he's capable of, like he's great here, and yeah, the ability to play that sort of haunted, but not like just angsty. Like it'd be really easy to play that as boring
as Netflix.
And it's not. It's just it's believable. Yeah, it's very believable.
Like he's a fully formed being.
Yeah,
he's not just his torture. There's good parts too, and one of the things that I hope is addressed is your best friend. He sacrificed all this stuff for you. He gets to the end of the road, and y'all have a second, like at least take a year to hang out. He goes off and travels time. Like that's gotta hurt. I don't care if you're happy for him or not.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're gonna find out what happened to Captain America after he handed that shield?
He's on the moon. I heard he's on the moon.
I bet you he is, honestly. Like I bet you it's gonna be like a throwaway joke. Like at the end of the series as like a stinger, it's gonna be Captain America playing solitaire on the moon. Like with Nick Fury's base. He's just gonna be like, I have to do something.
I don't know what they're gonna do, but I don't need to know anything. I mean, it was wrapped up so well thematically in Endgame. I think that's all we need. And I like the idea that these two characters know what happened and where he is, and that he ended up with a happy ending, but no one else knows. But Cap doesn't really want anyone to know how he, what he did, what he chose.
Right.
Well, because they completed Cap's arc so well, because like Captain America and Iron Man switched. Because in the first Avengers, it was like you're not the one to make the sacrifice play, and he ends up sacrificing himself.
Right.
And then Cap never knew how to not be a soldier.
Yep.
And he just went and lived an entire life. He may have like done some heroic stuff in that other timeline, but like he got to actually live, which was a big thing he didn't do.
But he did outlive Peggy, as the commenter just said. We know he's not dead, so.
Or they never say anything about his death.
Nicole says, they never say he's dead. And last we see him, he's an old man, but Super Soldier Serum, he might live for another 20 years. So I say playing Pinnacle on the Move, Nick Fury.
You mentioned the therapy sessions, and Idlone says the camera angles gave me kind of a sinister vibe to that therapy session, like she shouldn't be trusted. Oh. And I don't necessarily know about that, but I do think they also really were intentional with like their mood lighting to set this really somber, serious tone there. And in direct contrast to, hey, if you go to Tunisia, you better have that yellow filter on.
That is the only thing I didn't like about this entire show, because I hate that so much.
Yeah,
and partially for the social reasons, but also because it's just lazy.
Yeah,
during the pandemic, is a bit of an aside. You have to sort of stay. You try your best to stay sane is the right word, I guess. And so one of the things I do is I watch these videos on YouTube that have people driving in different countries with these HD cameras, and one of them was driving through Afghanistan, and it's gorgeous.
Right.
But if you see these movies like Extraction, I think the Russo brothers did with Hemsworth, it's all this yellow filter, and it makes them seem like this horrible place, and it's not.
Yeah.
I've been to Morocco. It felt very familiar. In fact, those scenes where him and Torres are getting tea, except for the dingy yellow part.
Like if you get off the plane, does it just like all of a sudden hit you?
Yeah, it's like
The bad influence of Michael Bay, right?
Yeah.
Those horrible color filters. Yeah.
Yep. I do like, by the way, speaking of that I love that Sam speaks Arabic. It's a little thing, but I really like that he knows the language.
Yeah, I mean, especially if he was a military man out there, that goes a lot hand in hand with the training.
Okay, sorry.
Will Morris has a theory about Cap. You want to read it here, Grant? Oops, wrong one. Here we go.
Will Morris says Cap's
No.
no. Prisoner of ABC's Inhumans.
We're all prisoners of ABC's Inhumans. If you watch any of it, you're mentally prisoned by it.
I have watched almost everything, even remotely to the tying to the MCU, except that. Like that's been my line. I'm like, I'm good. I watched all 7 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I didn't watch that.
Same.
That's your Meatloaf drawing a line.
It's like that's it.
Anything, but you won't do that. So okay, we haven't talked about Sam and his sister. Their boat problems, and they co-own a boat together that their parents had when they were kids. And I liked this storyline because it further grounds him, and it has really relatable problems as far as, you know, like being 5 years gone is one whole issue that's not necessarily relatable, but you know, just kind of this everyman struggle of trying to make ends meet and thinking you can solve a problem with enough swagger or enough goodwill cred when the system's just shitty. It was I liked his dynamic with his sister as well. I thought it was really well done, and it's something that I think we sometimes are lacking with a lot of Marvel characters. Like, what is their family? What is their outside life from here? And I think the first time we really got a good glimpse of that was with like Hawkeye, and he had a whole family, right?
Yeah, and I really like the act. I don't know the actress's name, but her and Sam Mackey had really great chemistry. Like you could sense this history between them just by the way they were talking to each other, and like the way brothers and sisters talk to each other. Because I have a few sisters. I'm the middle boy, and I have 2 sisters, and I'll come in there with a lot of bravado, and they're like, "I remember when you used to run around without a diaper on. Don't talk to me." And like they had that same energy.
Yeah, they felt like siblings, and she really like played the weight of having to keep everything afloat while he was gone and experiencing the blip throughout those 5 years. She really played the weight of that really convincingly.
Yeah,
she's great.
They disagree, but they don't bicker. Like, I think that's really important. Like, you can tell there's love underneath it, but there's also like a long history. Like when she throws those jabs about you left for the military, I stayed behind. Like, there's a history there, and there's hurt along with all the love together. Like you get all those layers, and that's the actors and the writing. That's all there. I also like, by the way, that despite the fact that they are having financial issues, what are they doing? They're putting together plates to take out to the community.
Right.
Like, I thought that was really we've just come through the ice storm here, and I watched that happen here and I know that's happening, you know, in Katrina, where it's basically like the people who are still struggling by themselves are finding ways to help out the community. And I think that says a lot about who she is as a person. Yeah,
like they just didn't get a loan, but rather than go home and pout, they're still trying to help people.
Right. I'm wondering, kind of as far as the narrative of how this might play into anything bigger. I'm not sure where they're going with that, except that it's just kind of underlying his struggles, not just with the superhero life, but also with everyday life.
Well, obviously, this is the boat is there, which means Namor's. They're going to introduce Namor.
Is that what it's going to be?
Yeah, Namor and probably Godzilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, it's obvious if you think about it.
And
So-
Mephisto too.
And Mephisto is the boat. I mean, it just makes sense.
The boat will transform into Al Pacino as Mephisto, and we'll get a good whoa.
So what do we think about this fucker right here? You guys want to talk about the
Oh,
guy?
man.
I won't give you a loan, but can you give me a selfie? Fuck you.
But he's emblematic of a lot of middlemen. Like,
Mhm.
it's the system. Like, you work in that situation. He's not saying you can't get a loan. It's probably his guidance that says you can't. Like, he's just an arm of that system. And there are probably like metrics like you have to have this much income, you have to have these many tax returns, all this stuff. And rather than stick his neck out, even for somebody who saved the world, he's like, I'm not going to make waves, but I'm going to get my autograph while I'm at it, and I'm gonna get my picture before I tell you I can't get a loan.
Yeah,
That makes him a dick.
That's what's so egregious, right?
Yeah.
I thought
He's the human face of the algorithm made to protect the system and not help the people.
I thought it's interesting. This guy and the guy who takes the shield from Sam and then gives it to some generic white dude, both the same guys. They're both they really appreciate
This
Sam.
asshole.
They appreciate Sam for his service. Like, this guy talks about, thanks for coming forward with the shield. It's the right thing to do. And this other guy's like, oh, thanks for everything you did. I love the Avengers. I always want to be an Avenger. Like, they want to be like, hey man, thanks for your service, but I don't want to help you. Like, and it's not me. It's like, no, I'm a good guy. It's the system, man. And I'm like, you're part of the system. Like, you could step outside and take those risks that he's taking for you, but you're not gonna. I think that's
Estonian sure has money. They could have bought that shield from him.
There's a good comment here from IT Johan. In the new Cap reveal, there was almost exclusively elder white men. I'm looking forward to what Marvel wants to say about old men holding on to old ideals.
Yeah,
They're saying a lot just with that image.
They referenced that in the Captain America run that Nick Spencer wrote, where Sam became Cap. There was a lot of people. There was a whole "Take Back the Shield" hashtag. The whole notion was that they could not accept a black man being Captain America. That they were like, it's got to go to somebody else. And I think they're definitely going to make notice of that.
Well,
I think it's a missed opportunity if they don't.
Right.
But they're probably gonna like sort of like in Interstellar, there was that part where they just sort of orbitally insert and then try to get out as soon as possible. They're probably going to do that. They're going to want to mention it, but not linger, because if you're going to really do it, you need to make it the entire series.
Yeah.
And they probably just mention it and have like a few signs in the background.
Yeah.
But if this was real life, like if I was Sam and Captain America gave me that shield, I'd be like, do you know what you're doing to me? Like, this is really nice, but let's go through what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So in the end, we are left with this goober here, John Walker. And Randy, can you tell us a little bit about John Walker?
Yeah. So in the comics, John Walker is a man from it's a fake town in Georgia. Basically, Mark Gruenwald created a guy who was basically
Atlanta.
He's like he wanted to be embodied patriotism in a way that Captain America didn't. A patriotic villain. Basically, Steve Rogers is a poor northern urban boy. So I'll make a guy from rural middle class South. So this guy's basically a young guy, and he was a Reagan era conservative. And what's interesting is Gruenwald was a liberal writer, but he kind of played fair with him. Like John Walker was, he took over for Cap because the government asked him to. And he was like, basically this kind of like what everyone would think of Cap. He's like good old boy, he's definitely a, polite, yes, ma'am, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there's the undercurrent of arrogance that can kind of come with like white Southerners. And I think that they did a good job of making him a likable villain. And they've turned him into a U.S. agent who is sort of like this more edgy type version of Cap. I suspect you don't get Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's son, to play a guy that we're all just going to hate the whole time. I suspect they're going to shade him a little bit. I suspect they're going to give him he didn't know that Falcon had been given the shield. He's like, the government came to me, asked me to do the job. I stepped up. But in the comics, he basically went nuts. He became a killer. Like, he had to be taken down. And I don't know if they're going to go that route or if it's going to be more of a thing where we see him become sympathetic and realize the shield doesn't belong to him. I'll just see which way they go.
This felt like Joffrey Baratheon casting here to me, where like we need someone who's not going to say anything, and you're just going to look at him and hate him immediately.
Well, I agree with sort of both of y'all in that I don't think they're going to go full hate, but they definitely. My wife was mentioning something because she really likes costuming, and she like watches a bunch of channels on it, she reads books about it, and the way they even designed this costume, it's made for you to not like it that much when you look at it. Like they don't want a Captain America that you're going to like when you see him. They want like that one that looks like he was copied a few too many times. It's like, yeah, you're
Good point.
technically Cap, but you're not, and it's really bothering me. He's the uncanny valley Cap.
He's also, it's much more militaristic. If you notice
Mhm.
when they see, he's got a pistol on his hip.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing you can't see in this angle, but when they showed him from the back, you can see he's got a pistol on his other side.
Yeah, and Cap
And-
didn't wear the pistol when he wasn't in war.
Right, exactly. That's a notable thing in modern times.
We had a few other. Well, we had a couple comments here I wanted to hit real quick. Don McPherson says, I found it a little implausible that Sam is reticent to access his support system, that is the Avengers. That's his family and is in dire. That his family is in dire financial straits seems a little forced. And yeah, I think we are addressing that. This is probably a little bit more of kind of massaging the narrative to achieve other end goals overall in the larger plot.
That's true. However, two things. One is, what even are the Avengers right now? I mean, is everything tied up in trust? Because the Avengers, who's left? Who's actually an Avenger right now? And like, just sure, Pepper might have something. She might have some money coming to her, but it could all be tied up in probate and that kind of thing. And the other is real world wise. I've tried to help a friend out with a loan at one point to get a mortgage, and it was like there are rules, like you cannot give that money. They have to get the money from themselves. They can't get money except from like a blood relative for some things, and it could be this kind of thing. It's like I've got Pepper Potts that should give me $1 million. And like, no, you can't take money from random people. It's got to be a blood relative. Like that is a thing that happens in the real world. So
I mean, you could theoretically get like, I think it's 14,000 and under for an untaxed gift, but that again is between relatives. And plus, I mean, thinking about from his perspective, he's a good guy. Her husband just died.
Yeah.
Saving the world. Like, is he going to want to talk to her? And they didn't really know each other that well. Like, that's the guy that, like, he's the guy that was fighting her husband in Germany. And so, like, he's not going to really want to talk to her. And then Black Widow's dead. That was a running buddy. Scarlet Witch is, in some mountain place somewhere. Vision doesn't exist to him anymore. Cap is gone.
He's got Rhodey.
Yeah, Rhodey. Like Rhodey is the closest tie to Pepper, and they could have made some reference where Rhodey said something about Pepper, like Pepper's tied, just like a one line. Pepper's tied up in probate stuff. She really wants to help out. Would have been nice, but they don't need it.
Even having to ask other people is, that's a hard thing to do. Yeah. And if he feels like I can make ends meet on my own, I completely understand that not being that much of a plot point. Like, yeah, I never asked for payment for this. This is just the right thing to do, and I will figure out my own way.
But I do want to give some credence to Don here.
Yeah,
I do agree with you in the fullness of it, because if this was the real world, there would be a fund set up, and these people would be paid.
I agree.
You don't have rules. Just as a practical matter, you are not subject to rules and doing services unless you have some kind of pecuniary interest in it. Like, they're going to pay you something. They're going to give you medical coverage at the very least.
Yeah. By the way, Don has another point that I thought was interesting. The one about Walker. Did you see that one?
Right here.
Yeah. That Walker is essentially the guy the General and First Avenger wanted to be Cap. He's like, he doesn't care if he's a bully. He just wants a tough guy. And I think we're going to see that play out. That's totally a nod, I think.
Will Morris says, Sam's sister makes a comment about the bank people not knowing who their father was, that he was a giant. Are they teasing some sort of big reveal?
I don't think so.
I got the sense that he was just big in the community.
Yeah.
A beloved person otherwise.
He's not Bill Foster.
Yeah, that would undercut the entire character of Sam if they did that.
Mm-hmm. Like, and it's just underlining the idea that even heroes, even people who are big in the community, no names, are struggling right now, and that's something that is relatable to a lot of us as viewers. I mean, when the show does like a shorthand to communicate the fact that the blip is hurting people on a personal and financial level, And that's something that I can relate to, and a lot of us can relate to, especially during the pandemic or as we're recovering from it. If it doesn't quite make sense in a real world sense, that doesn't bother me, because the fact that a giant popcorn Marvel show is addressing something like that in a genuine way, I think it's kind of important and kind of cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so too.
Yeah, and just to echo you, Mike, like just really tease it out. Like if half the world disappeared and then came back 5 years later, people had moved on with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if you got remarried?
Yeah.
And then your spouse shows up. You're like, oh shit.
What does it do to the economy?
Yeah.
I'd be like, is my student loan forgiven? Or
Yeah. See, if you look too far into it, it starts to come apart.
We don't have an infrastructure to feed people anymore.
Yeah.
How do we ramp back up to the food production or transportation, or there's no jobs anymore for what you did? Like, all of that is got to be such insane stress points. So
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, Pepper's money may all be tied up in feeding people. Like she could be using StarTech and money to make you can definitely hand wave it, because there's a lot of stuff to be dealt with.
Well, in Far From Home, she wrote a check to Aunt May's foundation.
Yeah.
That was trying to get housing for people.
Yeah.
And that's 8 months after the blip. This is 6 months after the blip.
Yeah.
There's a couple other little Easter egg things that popped up, especially in the back credits. I was going to point out here. We get a little shot of this guy here, which I think I wrote down who the actor is.
That is Carl Lumley.
Carl Lumley.
Is that going to be Elijah Bradley?
And yep, the thought is it's Isaiah Bradley.
Is Isaiah's the grandfather, right?
Isaiah's the grandfather. You're right.
I get those confused too.
Because Eli. Yeah, because I mean, it's clear that Marvel's going for Young Avengers. And so, like, they already got 4 of them already set with the twins, Cassie, and they're going to be Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye series.
Yep.
So you get Eli, you're good, you're golden.
And we've got Ant-Man's daughter. Like, I think we're also thinking, like, if they do Secret Invasion, they can introduce Hulkling in that doing Skrulls. It does seem like they are aiming for Young Avengers.
So this would be a lineage thing, like well, so it's passed down. Is it? So can you tell me about Isaiah Bradley?
So in the comics, it was basically a story done by Kyle Baker that was called Truth. The notion was the super soldier was tested on African American soldiers, kind of like the Tuskegee, not the Tuskegee, but
right.
No, but I think in the
Tuskegee, yeah, like the syphilis, the stuff that was done, and the notion that basically like he was like, they would definitely have tested this on black soldiers, whether they knew it or not. And so they had this black Captain America, and then his grandson, Elijah, becomes a member of the Young Avengers. I imagine if they do it here, I think it all could tie into Power Broker. If he's been doing super soldier experiments all this time, and if he's the unethical guy, he could have been the one who does those experiments, and then it's not the government doing it, which, believable as it may be, I don't think they want the government in the MCU to be responsible for that.
Right. Interesting. They also had a little mention here. It says
Madripoor.
Yeah, Madripoor here is referenced. And can you explain a little bit about Madripoor? It's a fictional place in Marvel.
Madripoor is like fictional Hong Kong. It's got it's like the dirty, more crime infested. It was introduced in Wolverine. It's a great fictional location. I would love if they use Madripoor in this.
I mean, this is how Wolverine's going to show up. Let's all get our expectations too high, guys.
And then, Randy, you requested that I include this image.
So there is a story called Original Sin, in which the Watcher is murdered, and Nick Fury is the guy revealed to have done it. And as penance, he becomes the Watcher on the Moon, or whatever his name is. And basically, he lives on the moon and is the new Watcher. And eventually, he is either killed or Bucky. Somehow, the Winter Soldier became like his space operative at some point. And I feel like this was a sideways nod to it. They're not, I don't think they're going that direction or anything, but I thought it was interesting that Cap being on the moon might have been like a little in-jokey nod for us. He
changes his name from Nick Fury to Nick Boner, I believe.
See, every time I'm hearing on the moon, it reminds me I think it's a poem. It's Whitey's on the Moon.
Yeah.
It's like a rat bet my sister Nell, but Whitey's on the moon,
Mm-hmm.
and like it just like keeps on playing whenever I hear on the moon.
Yeah, that was in Lovecraft Country this season. That's where I first heard it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we have a few questions going forward in this season. I was wondering if you guys have any particular theories.
I'm getting hints that our two heroes again will become fugitives, like we've seen them a lot in MCU, or they will be operating outside the law to root out some massive corruption from inside the government or military. We've already seen things in this first episode, like Bucky lying to his government-appointed therapist and doing what he thinks is right to cleanse his soul and to root out the villains on his list, right? So he's already like subverting authority there. And then, of course, the government giving Sam a big fuck you, handing the shield to this Popeye-looking fuck instead of leaving it on display for it to inspire others
Sorry.
as a symbol alongside Cap. Like, I mean, so these two don't play nice with authority or with the system, and that's fine because the system is obviously corrupt. So,
There you go. There he is again.
oh god,
That's one of the best insults I've ever heard. I'm gonna have to put that in my vernacular.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or theories from you guys?
I really don't have any theories. Like, I'm actually very thankful for that because I really enjoyed theorizing WandaVision. Don't get me wrong, but I like that this is a little bit more straightforward.
Mhm.
It's a good change of pace, and I wouldn't mind if the Loki series that's going to be next is more theory based. But like, I sort of like the switching gears of like, okay, there are times when I want a theory show and I want the ball to be hidden from me. And there's other times I just want to sort of be on a really nuanced roller coaster. Like, show me some character work, but give me some action.
Yeah.
Like, I know what's coming, but you're going to surprise me a little bit, but I don't need to always have it to be on that level. And I really am thankful for like, okay, this is just going to be some good Russo brothers style action set pieces, some intrigue, and maybe Bucky ends up happy. That's what I want. I want happiness for everybody. That's what I want.
Mephisto's the boat.
Oh, God. At the end of it, it's going to be like runes.
Oh shit! Mephisto's the boat.
It was the boat all along. Is going to be the banger of the summer.
it's the dark hold.
Oh God.
Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up there. Then we actually went a little longer than normal.
Sorry, Nessa.
But no, it's a premiere episode, and typically, everyone watching us, we would put these out on Friday night, but I selfishly had a different commitment that I decided to go to. So I appreciate that, Randy, Elliott, Mike, you were all able to push this back a day, and you, the viewers, were able to tune in today. We will be back next week to talk about episode 2 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on YouTube on Friday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we would love for you to come join us again and keep watching. And you know what? If you have a second, you can go to youtube.com/MCU Pod. We now have the better handle. There's been enough subscribers. So thank you everyone for rallying. But if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and go to youtube.com/MCU Pod and hit that subscribe button. You can follow us over at Twitter at MCU Pod as well. And if you want to help out this show, if you're enjoying it and want to show us a little bit of support, you can go to patreon.com/MCU Pod. And there you can make a per episode pledge. If you give us, or no, per month pledge. I padded it out a bit. Thought it'd be a little easier. If you want to give us $2 a month, you can join the Defenders. If you want to give us $5 a month, you can join the Revengers. And if you want to give us $10 a month, you can join the Avengers. We're going to be doing exclusive bonus content over on Patreon for all y'all to thank you so much for your support in this project. And you know what? We just appreciate y'all. This is a lot of fun doing this. And I want to say thank you again to Elliott and Randy for joining us. Elliott, where can people find you and follow you?
You can. My Twitter handle is ITL Elliott, and this is the podcast I'm on most because I am a somewhat new father, and even having the time to do this is a privilege. So I thank you for having me.
It's great.
Come back soon.
Randy.
You can find me over at thetvdudes.com. I do a weekly TV podcast, and at roguesgallerytx.com, which is the home for my Comic and Game Shop in Roanoke, Texas, where we also do a mostly weekly pop culture podcast.
Excellent. Mike?
You can find me on Twitter at Mike Moody Garcia. Again, I want to thank Elliott and Randy. You guys made this episode awesome. Thank you.
So much fun. You can follow me at Baron Von Grant, and we'll be back again next week talking about episode 2. Like I said, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Until then, adios. Bye, y'all.